Hey guys, it's Arleesha. Welcome to another video. So today I want to compare the Winsor and Newton professional watercolors, which is the blue set, and their Cotman or student grade watercolor set, which is this white one over here. So as you can see, I actually haven't even opened this Cotman set. I got it specifically for the purpose of this video, so I'm going to be showing you a little bit more of that one here in the beginning, as far as like the pans and the pat thing. This part, I'm going to be showing them to you. Pretty much all of the Cotman colors come like right out of their pans if you tip them over, like they just kind of slip out. But after they were wet and used, they stuck a little bit better, and I honestly haven't had any more issues with them. And I did notice that this alizarin crimson has a little bit of a chalky finish to it, but I wasn't worried about it too much because the price of these is pretty different. Like my professional set cost me closer to $90 US, and the Cotman set only cost me around $13 US. They both came with a travel brush, and as far as I can tell, they're pretty much identical. They're about the same size, around a size 2 to 4, and they are both synthetic. So here's the thing. I don't really use either of these palettes very often, so do you guys want them? I was thinking about this and how I literally bought this one for the video, the Cotman one, the professional one I've had for a little while, but I don't use them, and I was thinking I could do a giveaway. So if you would be interested in winning either one of these sets, leave a comment down below and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I will pick a winner, a random winner for each of the palettes. It doesn't matter where you live, international or wherever in the world, as long as you are a resident of the planet Earth, you are welcome to enter this giveaway. So what I will be doing is the giveaway will probably end relatively soon. So if you can have your comment in the description by the time my next video goes up. So this video is going to go up on Thursday. My following video will go up on Monday. So that'll give you the whole weekend and then a little bit of wiggle room to leave a comment down below. And don't worry if you miss this giveaway, because I will be doing another one relatively soon. So let's talk about these actual paintings that I'm working on. In the initial layers, I couldn't tell too much of a difference between them. The initial layers were going down pretty nicely, and I was enjoying mixing colors for both of them. Usually when I'm mixing colors for skin, I start with like a base normal skin tone, and then that normality just completely goes out the window and everybody has rainbow skin. Because I go, oh, I could use a little bit of blue. That would be nice for like some translucency. And then I try to balance that out with some red and then some yellow and then maybe a little bit of green. I don't know. So everybody has rainbow skin, and I like that. I enjoy it very much. I did blend out my edges a little bit more on the professional side. I cannot tell you why I did that, but I did. And I couldn't really tell too much of a difference until I got to sort of the final layers of skin on either two sides. Once I had layered up like the last of my deepest shadows on both sides, I could tell that the Cotman ones got a tiny bit chalkier and a little bit more opaque as more layers laid up. But really, that's any watercolor is gonna really do that. Like the more layers, especially layers of contrasting colors, the more you add, the more opaque and less luminescence and vibrancy you're going to have in those layers. But it definitely happened faster on the Cotman side, on the cheaper paint side. I did use the same gold paint on both of them. It's my Fine Tech watercolor set, whatever that last, I think it's like Tibet gold is the last little pan of gold paint. I purposely used the same ones. I wanted to kind of compare and see if that gold would look a little bit different on the two different sides, and I really wanted to use my gold watercolor. I haven't used it in a while, so that was super fun. I only painted the hand portions in watercolor, so I did actually use gouache for the bottle. I've been really wanting to use my gouache more lately, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen me struggling in my stories about putting a palette together that I liked and working all of that out. So, and again, I still wanted to do a cheap and expensive thing, so I used a cheaper brand of gouache on the Cotman side and a professional brand on the other side, the professional side. So, I've compared these brands of gouache before. I'm using my Marie's gouache on the left and my Holbein gouache on the right. So, it's really interesting because the Marie's gouache is still a pretty decent opaque paint. I can tell that the consistency is a little bit different, but I think it's like the makeup is different. Kind of like the difference between a Western style watercolor like Schmincke or Winsor and Newton and like an Asian watercolor like what's the Kuretake Gansai Tambi, which I reviewed recently. It's almost like they're similar in their differences, if that makes sense. So the Marie's gouache is a little bit gummier. It's still pretty opaque, but it is cheaper, so it's a little bit streaky. The colors were actually a little bit more vibrant, and they didn't blend together as much as the Holbein colors. So the finish reminded me a little bit more of acrylics than the Holbein gouache, which of course gives that sort of matte finish that you would expect from gouache. But the Marie's was a little bit shinier. It was actually really interesting because with the differences between the two brands of gouache and the way that their consistencies just varied, the professional side, the Holbein gouache, actually, because those layers blended together a little bit more, there wasn't quite as much contrast in the colors. So when I would lay my lightest colors on top on the professional side, they tended to kind of darken down and tone down more than the Marie's gouache did, which is really interesting because that's one of the things, like one of the biggest things that people say that happens with gouache is that the lighter colors dry darker and the darkest colors dry lighter. And that is true. I feel it to be actually a little bit more true with the Holbein gouache than with the Marie's. As you can see, especially in this part, it is a little bit streakier on the Marie's side, but those colors don't tend to tone down as much. Like I said, it reminds me a little bit more of acrylic paint, even though it's definitely still, gouache. I struggled a bit with the bottles themselves. And I know I've talked about this before, but gouache is definitely not as familiar to me as watercolors. So when it came to making this look like an actual glass bottle, I struggled a bit with how to get that effect best. And because I did the cheaper one first, that one was a little bit more the struggle. And then when I got to the professional side, I had a little bit more of a technique that I felt a little bit more comfortable with. And so I feel like in that way, that side, the overall bodily effect was a little bit better executed, if that makes sense. So for both of these, I wanted to do this sort of wisping, trailing, smoky thing. Yep, that's definitely eloquently spoken. And I wanted to keep the colors as similar as possible, but I did change the techniques that I used for these two. So on the Cotman side here, I started with laying my lighter values on top of the darker base. And I was liking the way it was looking, but I was really struggling to get the form right. And then I got kind of lazy on the Cotman side, and I just started, I made the whole thing lighter and laid in shadows instead. So I was adding in shadows instead of adding my highlights on top. And ultimately, I think the more effective method was the way I had started. So laying in highlights on top and then deepening the shadows if I needed to. This second method that I used of laying in a straight base of a lighter color and then just adding in shadows, I feel like it didn't have as effective of a look to it. I didn't really like the form of it as much, and I feel like it could have been much better executed. But on the professional side, with that in mind, I did just kind of lay in my highlights on top, which you can see now, and I laid in those lighter values on top of my slightly darker base. It doesn't have as much contrast on the professional side as it does on the Cotman side, but the overall look I prefer. They were definitely both good learning experiences, trying both of these two methods separately, but I did ultimately prefer the look of the more professional side, if it had more contrast. So here they are, side by side. Is that... Wait, that's not how I picked it. It was the other way. Yeah, there we go. Is that right? They were definitely like this, right? No. Yeah, yes, okay, yes, they were definitely this way. I enjoyed both of them. I'm not unhappy with either piece. I can definitely tell a difference in the two, but they were actually both pretty fun to work with. So let me know which one's your favorite, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the description if you would like to enter this mini little giveaway to win one of these two palettes. So have a great weekend, guys, and I hope that you are all doing very well, and I will talk to you next time. Okay, bye!